Welcome to the another episode of r/Askreddit. What did you think was normal about your body until someone pointed out that it wasn't? I have a W-dilla. That little hanky thing in the back of your throat. Mine looks like a ball sack. I thought that's just what they looked like cause how often do you look in people's throats? I remember seeing cartoons as a kid where they'd zoom in on a character's mouth when they are screaming or something. And I just thought the artists were lazy, drawing a simple droopy line. But no, that's what most people's look like. When I was in my 20s I went to the doctor for something unrelated, and she checked my throat and just said, "Hi, you have a W-dilla. Neat." I went home and told my roommates and they all had to look in my mouth. I thought they would think the doctor was the weirdo, but they were all shocked. I'll never forget one saying, "You've got balls in your throat." I have one too. My dentist I've been seeing for nearly 6 years gets so excited every single time I visit. It lights up her day no matter what. The first year of menstruating I had intensely painful periods and severe constipation. The periods would last 2 weeks, with 2 weeks in between each one. Everyone told me things would calm down and even out. Then one night, at a friend's sleepover, I was in so much pain that I was sobbing on the bathroom floor. My parents rushed me to the hospital. Everything I was describing, pain-wise, made it sound like I was in labor. But I was 14 and still very much a virgin. After a week of tests and painkillers, they finally figured out the issue. I then had surgery to open up my second uterus and cervix, which had been sealed shut by a membrane. I had been having periods for a year and had built up like 2 liters worth of blood in my sealed second uterus. So once that was drained out and I was put on major antibiotics, I got to go home and tell all my friends that I had 2 uteruses. I was also born with 1 kidney. Not sure if that's related, but I sure am a mess down there, LMAO. Hello person who went through exactly the same thing as me. This was so surreal reading this. I have never met anyone else who has even heard of this, let alone been through it. But this is me. I was 13 and having these same kinds of pains. So sorry you went through this too. God, it was awful, but there was no blood for me. My membrane blockage was complete. They had to perform surgery to remove it after finally figuring out my body had been trying to have a period for a few months. They thought it was a tumor at first after an ultrasound, because I had an extra uterus floating around in there, and both my uteri were also huge from the backed up blood. And I also have just the 1 kidney. I guess the one teensy silver lining is that I never had that experience of starting my first period somewhere awkward like the middle of class. I was in a hospital. Anyway, so glad you shared, and I'm so glad we are both okay. I think we both would have died super young if we had been born a long time ago. Also, saw some of the questions people were posing below about getting pregnant in both uteri. I do think it's possible for some with this condition. I'm choosing not to have kids because it would be very high risk. It's hard on the 1 kidney, and I've been told 1 uterus is small and not strong enough. So if I got pregnant in the wrong one, it would be heartbreaking. Just too many risks. That I had 8 wisdom teeth grow into the extra space in the back of my jaw, 2 for each side, top and bottom, that all grew in just fine after 20. Only to find out on my last trip to the dentist that I have 8 more growing in sideways. The normal amount of wisdom teeth is 4, not 16. Some of the women in my family grow a 3rd set of teeth in their 30s. My great aunt had a nearly perfect set, only 1 came in crooked, but my mum's sister had hers come in next to her adult teeth, so she has 2 rows in some places, like a shark. My mum got a couple extra, but they were pulled, and I haven't gotten many yet, though I got to keep all my wisdom teeth and they didn't. I use the phrase, you know, when your heart does that fluttery sensation, and it's like you can feel it beating for a few seconds. Apparently not everyone does know that. In fact most don't, and my colleagues looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Mine does this. I've mentioned it to my doctor, but it didn't show up on a heart tracing. Wore 1 for 24 hours. Some days it will be multiple times, and then nothing for a month or 2. It's really odd. This is the opposite. You know when you're breathing like normal, and suddenly when you inhale you get this sharp pain in one side of your chest, at the ribs behind your pectoral muscle, and every time you try to inhale further it comes back, then goes away entirely after a few minutes. Yeah, that's called precordial catch syndrome. Doctors don't know exactly what causes it, but the running theory is that a nerve near your ribs occasionally gets pinched when you inhale, and it takes a few moments for your body to dampen the signal from that nerve. It's very common and does not indicate any underlying or dangerous medical issues. I have this. Always wondered what it is and what it's called. I have a big head. I've never once found a hat that fit, not even a toque. So, when I joined the army they didn't have a hat big enough for me. I was the only person out of 60 of us without a hat. Drill sergeants I had never met would run from across fields to yell at me for walking outside without my hat. When I explained that they didn't have a hat big enough for me, they cracked up and called me Charlie Brown. It took 2 weeks of that before a hat arrived big enough for me. Sniper's dream. I've got alternating exo, the eye doctor called it. I can choose which eye I can see out of, and can switch as I please. Whichever eye is not picked turns off, and I don't see out of it, since I chose the other eye. Since I've been able to do it all my life, both of my eyes can operate alone, so if I lose one it won't be as bad adjusting. Pretty nice actually, but the exo makes me hate selfies cause whichever eye isn't picked drifts outward, which is noticeable to me at least. That's not the only one I can think of to lol. Edit. Yes, I know there's surgeries to fix the drift, but my eye doctor said that it might cause more problems and it's minimal enough that I can live comfortably. I don't have any issues with bumping into things I couldn't see or dealing with small things. I can activate my tensor tympani muscles. They make that roaring in your ears when you yawn at will. For some reason, they also activate when I feel sudden pain, even when there's no sound or noise involved. Wait, this isn't normal. I constantly have to flex my muscles. Not in the douchy check me out ladies kind of way, but in a more frustrating I need to move this muscle in the next 3 seconds or I will feel like I'm being tortured kind of way. Constantly rotating my shoulders, flexing shoulder blades, neck, arms, wrists, ankles, legs, wherever. Makes it hard to sit still or sleep. Only seriously noticed when I slept with my first partner, who was very confused as to why I wouldn't stop twisting and flexing for at least 2 hours before falling asleep. I just figured everyone got that feeling. Being under a weighted blanket, feeling my arm or leg fall asleep both feel like utter torture and will make me scream and writhe about. Would love to know what the hell this is and how I deal with it, because so far I have no clue. It sounds like restless leg syndrome, which can affect your whole body and not just your legs. Have your iron levels, specifically your ferritin levels, checked. RLS is torture, but there are treatments. I thought I was bad at running because my throat would seize up and get painful whenever I ran for more than a minute. I mentioned this to my doctor when I was 30. Turns out I have asthma. Found out I had asthma when I blacked out after walking up some stairs. -10/10. That's asthma? I have thought I was bad at running for the last 56 years. Well, I get itchy as soon as I get overheated. Like an all over body itch. There's no rash that pops up. I just get very itchy. Same. Glad to know I'm not the only one. It's like a heat rash or allergy without the rash. My old co-worker and I used to go jogging around the park, and once the sweat kicked in, she'd be scratching her body the entire time. Lol. I once took part in a study as a paid participant. The doctors used ultrasound probes to examine the blood vessels on my face. They commented on how strange my face's blood vessels were. They struggled and puzzled a little while examining my face. Then they handed me more cash and asked whether I would be willing to donate my body after I died to a medical study. They were polite and respectful throughout the whole process, just seemed excited. Edit. They didn't tell me what's wrong, so I DK either. And my face looks perfectly normal, at least from the outside. Sir, you must allow me to pay you now, so that I may own your carcass. At the moment of your death, of course. Nobody told me this. I ended up learning this on my own in my early 20s. I have a third nipple. I always thought it was a mole on my ribcage and I actually used to like it and kinda thought it was cute. As soon as I discovered the truth, I immediately started to dislike it. And it's funny, but it actually does make me feel exposed when I'm wearing a bra or bikini and one of my nipples is showing. Lol. A nubbin? The petite mal seizures I can remember as far back as 6 years old. It wasn't until I was 10 and had a grand mal seizure that I really understood I should have said something before then, but I was embarrassed. I feel this so hard. I was 12 the first time I had a grand mal. I suffered through so many petit mal and absence seizures over the prior years that it's a miracle I made it out alive. Dermatographia. I have really sensitive skin with an overactive histamine response. When I'm gently scratched with a blunt object, I get a hive in the shape of the scratch. I can write my name in hives on my forearm. The way that my eyes see car headlights at night. I thought everyone saw it that way, but apparently it's not normal and is due to astigmatism. Thank you. I knew about the lens flare, but I get the double vision as well, like a second image, but a dulled or semi-transparent version. But each eye does it, so it's not my eyes being misaligned. I thought I was weird, but it turns out that's the astigmatism too. Apples aren't spicy. Same. Spent 20 plus years thinking bananas were sour and grapes were carbonated. Apparently I'm just intolerant of them. Feo. Yeah, I always thought I was really sensitive to spice. Turns out I'm just allergic to peppers. Like, bell peppers make my lips itch. Thought I had great vision until I tried glasses and found that everything was so much sharper and more vivid. Apparently my left eye has a vision defect, but my right eye learned to compensate, so I never realized. I remember playing Skyrim and thinking they made it too sharp. In reality, mountains that far away didn't look that sharp. Didn't they know how to add a blur or fog shader based on distance? A week after that I happened to get my eyes checked. Turned out I'm nearsighted. Mountains do look like Skyrims. Skyrim was more real than my reality. I'm very buoyant. I have a hard time sinking to the bottom of a pool at all, no matter how hard I try, and float completely with almost no effort for very long lengths of time. I'm the opposite. Swimming classes in summer camp were hell for me because I cannot for the life of me float on my back and keep my body above water without significant strain and muscle effort. Did your swimming coaches keep telling you to relax and you would float? I stopped moving and would sink to the bottom of the pool. My tongue has a bunch of cracks and craters in it and is not smooth. Rubbed. For her pleasure. Sometimes I can feel and hear my spinal fluid moving in my neck and the base of my head. It sounds like a rain stick. I thought this was just cartilage PR, the joint moving. Spinal fluid you. I was happier thinking otherwise. Being bone deep exhausted all of the time. I can sleep for 10 hours, be awake for an hour, and then sleep another 10. Got denied for a sleep study because the doctor didn't think I was depressed, told to take more magnesium. I suffered from an iron deficiency when I was younger that has since been resolved to no change. I did try and go for a sleep apnea test, to which they said that it would be a waste of time to test me for it since I don't show symptoms, no snoring, gasping for breath, etc. Edit. Wow, we did not expect this to blow up. Added Involuntary, iron deficiency and sleep apnea. Find another doctor who will actually give a I'm sorry that happened. You could be anemic, have a sleep issue or something else. Apparently most people don't have much in the way of toe dexterity. I'm monk down there. Same. A lot of times it's easier to pick something up with my feet and hold my foot up to my hand than bend down to pick it up. Same. I can grab a pen and write legibly. Not pretty, but legibly. When I lean on my elbows my shoulder blades stick pretty far out behind me. Hard to explain I guess, but multiple people have pointed it out as weird. Also I can crack my wrists the same way most people can crack their knuckles. It's very satisfying, and like 5 times as loud. I can stick my shoulder blades out 3 or 4 inches. A doctor told me that I was missing specific muscles in my back, which was why I'm able to do it. I don't need to lean on my elbows to do it. I can crack my wrists loudly too. Over and over and over again. I was blowing up balloons with someone once and silently judging them for not being able to do it in a single breath. Turns out I'm the freak who just has mental lung capacity for some reason. Is it normal to not be able to blow up a balloon? Like, at all? Ever since I was a kid, I've watched people do it. And when I try, my ears are in a searing pain, and no matter how hard I try, I can't even fill a balloon up a little bit. It's very frustrating, and I've never met anyone like me. I knew I always had a stuffy nose, but didn't think much about it. Got onto medicine that finally helped, and my nose cleared up a bit, and I could smell a little better in high school. Didn't realize how bad it had affected my sense of smell until college, though. I had a chemistry lab where we had to determine the scent of some liquids. It's been too long for me to remember what they were. I couldn't smell anything until I breathed through my mouth. I was suddenly able to figure out each one. That's still how I smell things. Edit. So I wrote this and then went to bed and it exploded while I was asleep. So here are answers to two of the most popular things. My doctors are aware I'm like this and my septum has been checked. It's not off enough to cause the problem. I just have a long list of incredibly annoying allergies that cause the issue. For example, I'm allergic to just about every green plant. Always check with your doctor about what will specifically help you, but I have to take an OTC allergy pill year round. But if I take the same one for too long, it stops working. I rotate every 3 months through Zyrtec, Allegra, and Claritin. I also take dimistonasal spray. Singular is technically for my asthma, but it seems to help open my nasal passages too. And it isn't perfect, but I can breathe through my nose most of the day now. That your brain never stopping is not normal. It's actually a sign of hyperactivity. The first time I took meds, and I only thought of one thing at a time. Overwhelming. OMG, me too. I cried when I took meds for the first time, because I thought that they'd damaged my brain and made me stupid. I have ADHD and OCD. It wasn't diagnosed until my late 30s. When we got my medication right, I sobbed for half an hour straight. My husband was freaking out, asking what was wrong. All I could say was, it's so quiet. If I'm sorta tuned out, or focusing on something, and I hear a sound behind me, or to one side, I can literally feel my ears attempt to turn toward the sound, like many animals do, such as cats. My ears don't actually move around, but there's some automated reflex that tries to do it. I mentioned it to my wife in an innocent statement that began with, you know how you can feel your ears try to move to pinpoint a sudden sound, and she looked at me as if I have 6 eyes. I haven't found anyone else. Since then, who knows what the hell I'm talking about. I do this. I can feel my ears twitch and try to move when a noise happens that I'm not looking at. I assumed everyone did that, but I guess not. Cataplexy. I lose the ability to grip or hold things, chew, sometimes even stand when laughing. Basically, my muscle hit the bed whenever I start laughing too hard. Me, my sister, and my dad have it. My sister has even dropped her children because of it. Don't worry, more of a gradual release than a full-blown drop, and no one was hurt. I grew up thinking it was entirely normal, and my mind was blown when I found out it was not. I asked the next 10 people I saw, friends, co-workers, drug dealer, if they got weak while they were laughing, and they looked at me like I was crazy. One of those contacts was not like the others. The doctor prescribed daily doses of laughter, and her drug dealer was a street comedian. Cheaper and hits harder, although, yes, still illegal. Thank you.